Penguin Random House Audio presents The Myth of Normal: Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture by Gabor Maté, M.D., with Daniel Maté. This is the co-author, Daniel Maté. To dearest Ray, my life partner, who saw me before I could see myself, and who loved all of me long before I could love myself at all. None of my work would exist without her. And to the children we brought forth together, Daniel, Aaron, and Hannah, who light up our world. The best physician is also a philosopher. Aelius Galenus, Galen of Pergamon. For if medicine is really to accomplish its great task, it must intervene in political and social life. It must point out the hindrances that impede the normal social functioning of vital processes and effect their removal. Rudolf Virchow, 19th century German physician. When you're trying to survive, you turn malady into a coping strategy and loss into culture. Stephen Jenkinson. Author's note: there are no composite or fictional characters in this book. Each story told is that of a real person whose words, from transcribed interviews, are reproduced accurately with occasional editing for purposes of clarity. When only a given name is used, it is a pseudonym to protect privacy at the interviewee's request. In such cases, some biographical data may also be slightly altered. Where both names are given, the identity is real. A word about authorship. This book was co-written with my son Daniel. Usually, the word "with" in identifying authors is meant to denote a ghostwriter, one who actually renders the main author's ideas into written form. That wasn't the case here. On most chapters, I was the primary author, with Daniel following up with a particular eye to style, tone, clarity of argument, and accessibility, and often contributing his own thoughts. Occasionally, when I found myself stuck on what to say or how to say it, he would take the writing reins for a while, crafting a particular section or chapter based on material I had collated and penned. In all cases, we would pass the chapters back and forth until we were both satisfied. The structure and flow of the book was also very much an ongoing collaboration between us, from the preparation of the book proposal through the final draft. So, while the book's authorship is unequally distributed, in that it reflects my work, research, analysis, and experience, it was very much co-written. I truly could not have accomplished the task without Daniel's brilliant partnership. Gabor Maté, Vancouver, BC. Introduction. Why normal is a myth, and why that matters. The fact that millions of people share the same vices does not make these vices virtues. The fact that they share so many errors does not make the errors to be truths, and the fact that millions of people share the same forms of mental pathology does not make these people sane. Erich Fromm, The Sane Society. In the most health-obsessed society ever, all is not well. Health and wellness have become a modern fixation. Multi-billion-dollar industries bank on people's ongoing investment, mental and emotional, not to mention financial, in endless quests to eat better, look younger, live longer, or feel livelier, or simply to suffer fewer symptoms. We encounter would-be bombshells of breaking health news on magazine covers, in TV news stories, omnipresent advertising, and the daily deluge of viral online content, all pushing this or that mode of self-betterment. We do our best to keep up. We take supplements, join yoga studios, serially switch diets, shell out for genetic testing, strategize to prevent cancer or dementia, and seek medical advice or alternative therapies for maladies of the body, psyche, and soul. And yet our collective health is deteriorating. What is happening? How are we to understand that in our modern world, at the pinnacle of medical ingenuity and sophistication, we are seeing more and more chronic physical disease, as well as afflictions such as mental illness and addiction? Moreover, how is it that we're not more alarmed, if we notice at all? And how are we to find our way to preventing and healing the many ailments that assail us, even putting aside acute catastrophes such as the COVID-19 pandemic? As a physician for over 3 decades, in work ranging from delivering infants to running a palliative care ward, I was always struck by the links between the individual and the social and emotional contexts in which our lives unfold and health or illness ensue. This curiosity, or should I say fascination, led me in time to look deeply into the cutting-edge science that has elegantly delineated such links. My previous books have explored some of these connections as they manifest in particular ailments such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, cancer and autoimmune disease of all types, and addiction. I have also written about child development, the most decisively formative period of our lives. This book, The Myth of Normal, sets its sights on something far more encompassing. I have come to believe that behind the entire epidemic of chronic afflictions, mental and physical, that beset our current moment, something is amiss in our culture itself, generating both the rash of ailments we are suffering and, crucially, the ideological blind spots that keep us from seeing our predicament clearly, the better to do something about it. These blind spots, prevalent throughout the culture but endemic to a tragic extent in my own profession, keep us ignorant of the connections that bind our health to our social emotional lives. Another way of saying it, chronic illness, mental or physical, is to a large extent a function or feature of the way things are, and not a glitch, a consequence of how we live, not a mysterious aberration. The phrase "a toxic culture" in this book's subtitle may suggest things like environmental pollutants, so prevalent since the dawn of the industrial age and so antagonistic to human health. From asbestos particles to carbon dioxide run amok, there is indeed no shortage of real, physical toxins in our midst. We could also understand toxic in its more contemporary pop psychological sense, as in the spread of negativity, distrust, hostility, and polarization that, no question, typify the present socio-political moment. We can certainly fold these two meanings into our discussion, but I am using toxic culture to characterize something even broader and more deeply rooted: the entire context of social structures, belief systems, assumptions, and values that surround us and necessarily pervade every aspect of our lives. That social life bears upon health is not a new discovery, but the recognition of it has never been more urgent. I see it as the most important and consequential health concern of our time, driven by the effects of burgeoning stress, inequality, and climate catastrophe, to name a few salient factors. Our concept of well-being must move from the individual to the global in every sense of that word. That is particularly so in this era of globalized capitalism, which, in the words of the cultural historian Morris Berman, has become the total commercial environment that circumscribes an entire mental world. Given the mind-body unity to be highlighted in this book, I would add that it constitutes a total physiological environment as well. It is my contention that, by its very nature, our social and economic culture generates chronic stressors that undermine well-being.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?